Got another sensational GBNews exclusive for you tonight from Chris Hope, our political editor, who sat down a short while ago with the leader of the Conservatives, Kemi Badenoch, and she is prepared to veto any deal the Prime Minister Keir Starmer is set to make that could row back any Brexit measures. Now, this comes, of course, as the Prime Minister is set to welcome EU leaders on Monday to London as ministers are looking to reset relations with Brussels. Let's take a look.
Kemi Badenoch, thank you for joining us tonight on GBN Tonight. Now, first up, you've seen what Brooks Rollins had to say there, that this family farm tax is a problem. We're going to see farms possibly closing. Is she right?
She is absolutely right. We have these awful stories of farmers committing suicide because they can't deal with this family farms tax. We need to show whose side we're on. And that's why the minute we get an opportunity, Conservatives will reverse this cruel and immoral tax, quite frankly.
You mentioned committing suicide. That hasn't happened yet, has it? Or are you aware of that happening now?
I have seen reports of it in Farmers Weekly, and it's something that I'm very concerned about. We need to look after farmers. Food security is absolutely essential for this country. It's part of national security. And we have a government that doesn't understand farming. It doesn't understand rural communities like my constituency, for example, in Essex. They have no idea. They have people who've never had to run their own business, haven't even worked in private businesses. And that's why they're making such a mess with their budget and with a lot of their economic decisions.
You're a former Trade Secretary. Would you eat chlorine-washed chicken or hormone-injected beef?
I don't even know where you would get it from. But when we were negotiating a new trade deal with Canada, this was one of the reasons why I stopped that deal. They wanted us to have hormone-treated beef coming into the UK to change our food standards. And I said no. And I said that's the end of it and walked away. I signed great trade deals like the Trans-Pacific Partnership, but where there were bad deals, I said no. And that's why I'm really concerned that Starmer signed the deal with India. There are a lot of problems with that deal, which is why I never signed it.
Now, speaking ahead of a big weekend on Brexit, a big talks between Keir Starmer and Ursula von der Leyen on Monday. You've got a pledge from your party, haven't you?
Yes, we do. That if Keir Starmer starts rowing back on the instruction that the country gave us on Brexit, that we will reverse the changes he made. If he starts new deals on free movement, we already have a huge immigration problem at the moment. We need to bring immigration down. If he does anything that brings free movement through the back door, we will reverse it. Same if he starts paying new money to the EU. We cannot afford it, for example. There are a lot of things which Keir Starmer needs to make sure he does in the national interest. My worry is that when Labour negotiates, Britain loses. You look at what it sounds like they're going to do on fishing. A lot of people, in the cities, in London, a lot of the Labour lefties, they think it's a big joke. They laugh at people who come from fishing communities. But the question I ask is, if they think fishing is so irrelevant, why does the EU want it so badly?
Yes, well, let's come to fishing in a second. But surely saying that means you're going to prolong the Brexit psychodrama, a lack of more uncertainty if you're going to unravel the deal agreed between the European Union and the UK.
Yes, we do, but we want to move forwards, not backwards. It's having a reset that takes us backwards, that takes us back to that psychodrama. We shouldn't have to be talking about Brexit anymore. We should be talking about how we're using the opportunities of leaving, rather than trying to give money away. For instance, this defense fund, giving money away when we already spend so much defending Europe. Look at Ukraine. And what are we getting in return? When there are airstrikes, for instance, on the Houthis, where are the European, where are those armies? They're not there. Why should we pay extra money to have an option to bid in for defence contracts?
Now, there are reports that the UK will allow France and maybe the Spanish trawlers access to UK waters for 4 years as part of this deal. Isn't it right, possibly, to do that and get a better deal with maybe a defence pact with the European Union?
Except that they're not better agreements, they're not better areas. I am very worried about a lot of those coastal communities in places like Grimsby, in the southwest, Cornwall, in Scotland, places where fishing is the very lifeblood of those communities. And we cannot sell them down the river, pardon the pun, just because we're trying to get another deal somewhere else. We know that when Labour negotiates, Britain loses. And you look at what they did on the Chagos Islands, you look at the tiny tariff deal they got with the US, it's not a free trade agreement. You look at what they've done with India on the double taxation deal that is very lopsided. I don't have confidence in Labour negotiating, and that is why I have set those 5 tests, making sure that NATO is at the heart of defence for the UK, in Europe in particular. Those are the things that we need to see them do.
Now, on the rape gangs issue, which we follow closely at GB News, the sentences for 3 individuals has been increased today by the Court of Appeal, but it transpired that 2 of these men have absconded and are believed to be abroad. Should there be a deal with countries like Pakistan that they must return individuals who do flee justice here to serve their time in UK prisons?
No, what we want to see is them being put in jail in Pakistan for the crimes that they have
don't bring
committed.
them back.
Yes, we need to, we have a policy to deport all foreign criminals, spending lots of money here looking after them. If they can be put in jails in other countries, even better. The real problem we have is that there are people that we want to deport who those countries like Pakistan don't necessarily take. That's a bigger issue.
But surely the victims here deserve justice, and watching and seeing justice being done.
Absolutely, absolutely. This is an issue that I care very much about. It's very personal for me. I've met many of those victims and I'm never letting it go. We need a national inquiry.
Well, absolutely. We'll wait to see you on that one. Can I ask for a comment about your colleague Patrick Spencer, who's now at the centre of a police inquiry?
Yes, we've taken immediate action, suspended the whip immediately. And this was about activities, I think, that took place long before he was a Member of Parliament. But I believe in the highest standards of integrity for my MPs. And I think it's absolutely right that when something like this occurs, that the whip is removed and the person is suspended from the party.
You first knew about it today?
Yes.
And finally, on a different topic, in Blackpool, the Talbot pub is styling itself as the UK's first Reform UK pub. In Reform UK colours, the landlord, though, has told GB News that they would be happy to serve you. Would you go for a pint in the Talbot?
I will go for a pint anywhere where there are good British people serving good British food and pints. I'm not somebody who decides who to talk to because of their party political affiliation. We should keep the politics out of the fun. There's not enough fun in politics as it is.
Okay, Kemi Badenoch, thank you for joining us today on GBN Tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Got to say, another superb interview from Chris Hope there. I think the very, very best in the business. Lots to dissect. Let's get some reaction now from the Labour Party. And I'm joined by the former Labour Defence Secretary, Geoff Hoon. Geoff, always a pleasure to have your company. When Labour negotiates, Britain loses. Kemi Badenoch repeatedly said that about proposed rollbacks on Brexit, on freedom of movement, on allowing 4 years continued access to Spanish and French trawlers, to British waters, saying she'll reverse the changes that Keir Starmer makes in fighting form. What do you make of her words tonight?
Well, first of all, good evening, Martin, and thank you for that introduction, which I'll try and deal with point by point. Let's start with defence, because it's an important issue currently. And I do wonder what planet Kemi Badenoch is on. Has she overlooked the fact that Russia invaded another European country in Ukraine? Has she overlooked the fact that there are some difficulties about NATO's relationship with the United States? And has she overlooked the fact that it's absolutely necessary for European countries to stand up and be countered? And given the UK's historic strength in defence, and it continues, I hope, today, it means that we have to be engaged, and we have to be engaged with other European nations.
You can't say the Conservative Party haven't been slavish almost in their adherence and support of Ukraine. That's for the birds. All of the main political parties have been right behind Zelensky since the start. Let's talk about Brexit, though, if we can. On Monday, many people are calling this a surrender summit. We left the European Union in 2016. Why on earth should Sir Keir Starmer be sacrificing British liberties, such as freedom of movement and continued access to fishing waters, in the name of some reset? Kemi Badenoch surely has a point.
I don't believe so. And the reality is that when Kemi Badenoch talks about the instructions given by the British people voted to leave. There's no argument about that. They voted to leave the European Union. What they did not do was vote for a whole set of decisions that were then subsequently taken by governments that she was part of. And it's not surprising that Britain has suffered as a result of those decisions. What we need is a realistic relationship with our European neighbours, our biggest trading partners, an area where increasingly we have to work with because of the defence issues that we just discussed. So I don't think it's sensible for her to talk about the instructions that the British people gave. The instructions she's talking about are instructions given by a Conservative government, and those instructions need changing.
So you think it's acceptable to be part of some European arms deal to allow potentially millions of young 18 to 30-year-olds to swan into Britain on 3-year work visas? Yesterday, Sir Keir Starmer said he wants to take back control of our borders. This does the precise opposite.
On the contrary, it is necessary for our industry, our defence industry in particular. And remember, Kemi Badenoch was responsible for trade in her previous position with the Conservative Party.
What's that got to do with allowing millions of students into Britain?
What we need to ensure is that we have good relations with our European neighbours, not least because they're our biggest trading partners, but also because of the threat that comes from Russia and other countries to undermine Europe. We need to work together. We can't simply take these decisions alone. And part of the reason for that, sadly, is that Conservative governments ran down the amount that was spent on defence from 2010 onwards. And in those circumstances, we've got to find a way forward. Spending more on defence, certainly, which is what the government are pledged to do, but also working with like-minded European nations to develop our European defence capabilities.
Geoff Hoon, quickly while I have you here, on the specific topic of rapists on the run, people who should be facing justice, they're hiding in Pakistan. Some people said they should be returned to Britain to face justice. Kemi Badenoch says they should be jailed in Pakistan. Meanwhile, the Labour Party won't even grant a full inquiry into this. What do you think should be done with these rapists on the run? Bring them home to face justice or bang them up in Pakistan?
Well, I think their victims would want to see them brought to justice, brought to trial, and if necessary, imprisoned in the United Kingdom. If the Pakistani authorities are not taking effective action, and that seems to be the concern, then this is one way in which we could deal with them. And I think we have to have regard to the victims.
In what way? Diplomatic pressure, trade sanctions? How about stopping foreign aid? It's despicable that rapists are on the run in Pakistan and we're not doing anything about it to receive justice for those survivors.
Well, there was a high-profile trial recently where the suspects were brought back from Pakistan, I assume, as a result of a decision taken by the government there. We have to continue to use our diplomatic pressure. I really don't mind where these people are tried. What is vitally important is that they're put on trial and put in prison.
I think a lot of people will concur with that sentiment. Geoff Hoon, former Labour Defence Secretary, great friend of the show. Pleasure to have your company. Thank you very much for joining us tonight on GBN Tonight. Now, I should say that the MP, Patrick Spencer, categorically denies the 2 charges of sexual assault against him and will defend the allegations robustly in court. His lawyers have said